This is Villa Kenworthy, and today we're making brats. Welcome to Villa Kenworthy. I'm Dennis, and today we're going to be making brats. I already have some of my ingredients prepared and ready to go. I have some brat seasoning that I get from the local Amish store. It's called Mishler's Country Store, and they have some stuff put together, and I really like it, and it's an inexpensive way to do it. I get this enough to do 30 pounds of meat for less than 10 bucks, so I'm really happy about that. And then I add a few other things in it. On the left-hand side, I've got 12.5 pounds of venison. On the right-hand side here, I've got 12.5 pounds of pork. Like I said, it's all finely ground. I usually take and freeze everything and then let it to soften up to where it's just easy enough to cut. And then I run everything through the fine plate grinder one time. Often they'll recommend that you run it through the big plate and then the little plate. I find that I like the texture a little bit thicker, so I run it through one time, but then I do use the fine plate. The other things that we'll need are some finely chopped onions. I took 3 large yellow onions and then I finely minced them, and then that's what we'll add in. I just like it for the flavor. I'm not sure of any other recipe that calls for it. And then I'll be throwing in some beer to kind of make them beer brats, and then I usually add a little bit of whole fennel seed with this. I just like the way that that goes. This particular seasoning that I've gotten, it's called a Farmhouse Bratwurst seasoning. I don't 100% know everything that's in it, but I've used it in the past. Like I said, it's a great price. I know Cabela's has a lot of different seasonings as well. I know you can get a kit to make brats from. If it's going to be your first time doing it, that's what I'd recommend, is just find a kit somewhere. I also have the natural hog casings, and I'll show you how I go through and just rinse those out and get them prepared. And then I'll throw all this into the meat mixer. I'll let that run for 6-7 minutes, mix everything up, and then we'll get to the stuffer, and I'll show you how I stuff them. It'll be a pretty quick, easy video, but if you're looking to make homemade brats, it's not as difficult as you think. The only thing is you do have to invest in some equipment. The equipment that I have, like I said, I do have the sausage stuffer. I have a fairly large one. I can do 10 pounds at a time. I also have my grinder. It's a number 8 grinder that I've had for years, back when Gander Mountain was still open. And I adapted that to fit the meat mixer, which is a Cabela's meat mixer. So this right here will run it for me. I did wait a really long time to do that. I have done this by hand before. You can mix everything by hand. You don't need the mixer. It does take longer, but down the line, if you plan on doing things like this, you might want to invest in some equipment that helps it go easier. I've had mine for years now, and I make my brats every year. I haven't purchased brats in maybe 5 years, 6 years, I think. So it does come in handy if you want to change things up and do it yourself. So here I'm going to show you how I rinse out the hog casings. I keep a bowl of water in here to keep them moist after I rinse them out. But basically you have to find the open end, and then you have to run warm water through it to flush it out, and that gets it to open up and stretch. As you're doing this, you kind of have to untangle it and untwist it so the water can run through. Normally, I just go ahead and let that first amount run through, and then I refill it again. Just anything to kind of keep it from busting and to rinse it out and to make sure that there's no binds in it. This one has a small hole in it, so I always pay attention to that as well. That way, whenever you get to it, you don't want the meat pushing out of it. And I'll do that with all of these, and then I put them into this bowl of water, and then I'll put a little bit of oil in this later, and that'll make it easier to push up onto the stuffing tube. So I have all of our ground meat added into the mixer here. I'm going to get that started. It is going to be a little bit noisy, so I'll probably cut that noise out, but I'll let you watch what I'm doing. All of the venison is coming from deer that I hunted myself and or received from a good friend of mine. Thanks again, Steve. I appreciate you giving me that little bit extra meat last season. And then I always purchase the pork butts on sale. Whenever they get down to 99 cents a pound, I will just buy 100 pounds of pork butts, and then I just trim them myself, grind them up. Venison is very lean, and then the pork is very fatty. So I take and trim a little bit of the heaviest stuff off the pork. Other than that, I chop it up and grind it and put it all together, and then it'll make a nice, not overly fatty meat whenever it's all combined, but it does good enough, and then some of the fat does render out whenever I'm cooking them on the grill. So without further ado, we'll get this started. First thing I'm going to do is just drop in the onions. Again, this was 3 large yellow onions that I chopped up finely. Then I'll dump one of the beers in. You can use whatever beer that you have available, whatever you like. It can be cheap or expensive. I prefer a little bit cheaper beer whenever I'm making brats. One thing to note, that I did realize that I had enough seasoning for 30 pounds, so I added 5 more pounds, so we are at the full 30 pounds now. And then I'm going to start trickling in my seasoning. And for 30 pounds, we'll do 2 12-ounce beers. I love a good beer brat. We'll pause for a minute. I'll push the sides down. And we'll start that mix it again. And now we'll add the fennel in. I don't really measure it. I do like the taste of fennel quite a bit, so I usually put maybe 3 tablespoons is what I'm going to guess. One really nice function of this meat mixer is that it can dump. So I just pull out the knob right here, tip it down, and then I can just pull the meat right out. It's pretty convenient. It's not really a necessity to have a meat mixer, but if you do get one, this would be a nice one to have. It also has a hand crank just in case you don't have a motor to go with it. But man, this thing sure makes life a lot easier. All right, now that we have everything ready to go, we'll get ready to stuff the sausages. One thing I do want to mention is that before you take the meat out of the meat mixer, take a piece, ball it up, make a patty, and then cook it on the stove to make sure that your flavors are right. Make sure you got enough salt and then you have enough of everything that you need before you take it out. Then if you need something else, you can just add it to it and mix it up a little bit more and you're good to go. So I've already done that, and now we'll move on to this phase. We've got 30 pounds of meat ready to go. Everything's mixed together. This is my Cabela's stuffer. So I'll bring you over here. I'll show you all of this stuff a little bit closer, and then we'll get started making the sausages. So this is a Cabela's 10-pound stuffer. I was able to pick this up on sale. It was a demo model, and it was the last one left, and it was damaged, so I got them to sell it to me at a discounted price. I have used one of the smaller 5-pound ones that I got on sale for $100, maybe 10 years ago, and I used that for the longest time, but now I've upgraded to a little bit bigger model. And this is nice because it's got all metal gears and it works really smoothly. I've got the brat tube right here, and it's got a collar that goes on and tightens it up. It is plastic. I will upgrade eventually to the stainless steel ones. You fill the hopper here with the meat, and then it sits right in here. It's got a little pivoting section that it gets on. Sits in like that, push it back, locks into place, and then you've got 2 different selections here. So I have this set on the top one. That goes fast, and if you need it to go slower, you put it on the small one. It takes more rotation, so it's geared a little differently, so it depends on how fast you want to move that. but I think it works great. All right, we're gonna get set up. I'll put on the casings and fill this hopper, and we'll get rocking and rolling. All right, so I've got my hog casings. As I mentioned before, I do keep them in water, and then I did spray a little bit of olive oil in here. You can use whatever oil you'd like, but I had olive oil handy, so that is what I used. And what helps me to get this on here without tearing it too much is that oil. You just have to find the opening. And then I take a little bit of that water and I coat the tube, and it just helps me slide it on there. These do twist a lot. This one's giving me a little bit of trouble here. I don't want to tear it. That's the hardest part, is tearing it. So you just feed this on here until you get it all the way up. So I have everything in the stuffer. I did switch things around because the crank I needed to be on the side with my hand, so that'll make life a little bit easier. You want to make sure that you keep the sausage casing nice and moist on here, and then I'm going to run out the air until we start to get a little bit of the meat coming out. All right. Now, one thing that you're not going to want to do is you're not going to want to fill these so tight that you can't twist the links. So I'm going to pinch it right here, let it kind of run out. And then I just like to control it as I feed it. I want a little bit of slack still left in the casing, like I said, so I can do the links. Now I do have a crack in the tube over here where you see a little bit of that meat coming out. It's because they're plastic. I will go with stainless steel here before long. I don't like doing them too fast because I don't want to pop the casing and have any meat come out. Although if that happens, it's not the end of the world. I'll give this a break here. I'm going to put a little bit more moisture onto the casing. Stress this out. And you got to be careful if they start to twist. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. Okay, now it's getting a little bit tight. Add a little bit more moisture. All right, back that off, pull that. And now I have one big sausage link. There are many different ways to do this. There's fancy ways to twist them, but I'm just going to show you all a simple way basically. So you got to remember that whenever you're twisting, that you want to twist the next one the opposite way. Or what you can do is you can go ahead and just mark them. How long do you want them? So that's up to you. And I'll just put a little pinch. Got that twisted. And then I find about the next length. Like I said, that little bit of slack is good. Twist it the opposite way. And when you twist it the opposite way, that doesn't unravel the link before. So I'm just taking and pinching, give a little twist, and then we will cut these, so it's not that big a deal. I'll show you here. And just twist them opposite way each time. And I don't mind having a few different sizes to choose from. Now as you get down to the end, that might be where you need to pay a little bit of attention. So I've got this guy right here. I'm just going to make this into two. That way I don't have to worry about evening it out too much. Now these will be a little bit thinner, but I promise they'll grill up just fine. All right. So usually what I do is I wrap all of these up. I have a stainless steel container here that I'll stick them in, and then I'll go back and cut them. But all you really got to do is take and trim them with a knife. Take and trim the ends off, and then I cut in between. I just try to make sure I don't cut too much. Now, if I was doing some type of sausage that I was going to smoke, I would do these totally different and hang them in different lengths to smoke. And maybe if we do another video on those, I'll show you how. But it's really easy. I try to cut right on the twist. That one kind of came untwisted there. I must have messed up one of them and twisted it the same way. And there you have it. That's how I make brats. So I'll finish up all 30 pounds of these, and then I'll package them by vacuum sealing them or double wrapping them, throwing them in the freezer, and we're set for the summer now. We can grill out as many times as we want. All right, so our basics. We started off, we had our meat. So I use venison and pork. You can use beef as well. I think traditionally they're made with beef and pork. Then find yourself a seasoning. I go with the different kits and stuff like that until you learn to develop your own. I just have a local place I buy mine at because it's the most economical for me. I do buy the pork butts on sale, so keep an eye out for those sales. And when you get them for 99 cents a pound, grab yourself up some. They usually come with 2 pork butts in a package. If you want me to ever show you how to trim those up, I can do that as well. But make sure you get the freezer space first. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Pass it on to some friends. If you have any questions, please reach out. If you have a recipe that you use, let me know as well. All right, thank you for tuning in.